Hi, everybody. It's so great to be with you. I'm Dr. Deborah Haskins. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor. I also am a certified gambling trainer. I come to you with over close to 40 years plus of experience in the mental health field, but also 25 years plus in the disordered gambling and problem gambling field. I specialize in cultural humility, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belonging, health equity, and social justice attuned services at the community level. I'm the owner and founder of Mosaic Consulting and Counseling Services. The topic I want to discuss is, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, integrating culture and social justice in problem gambling, disordered treatment, and mental health well-being. Basically, I'm going to be focusing on how do we support people with gambling challenges, as well as how can we best support cultural communities. And I'm going to share with you my experiences as a leader and as a clinician working in this field, also my experiences in gambling disorder advocacy with a focus on supporting, in particular, cultural communities. Cultural communities are oftentimes not well understood or well supported, and I'm excited to be able to help expand your understanding, as well as give you some practical strategies of how to empower your clients as well as the communities that you're supporting. This topic is very important to me, one, because I am a visible racial person. I am African descent. And for my entire career, I've focused on cultural integration and social justice and health equity because I represent a group and a culture that has not often been supported sufficiently, particularly in Western healthcare. Western healthcare has primarily been developed by Europeans with a focus on that particular cultural worldview. And we know that worldview does not really connect to diverse cultures. And so the work that I've done and why this is important is because I'm always trying to help practitioners and public health leaders and advocates and community members figure out, how do I help support a person who has a gambling challenge or a substance use challenge or a mental health challenge, or they may have components of each. I call it solution gambling, in particular as a person of color, because a lot of people of color who represent visible racial communities as well as ethnic communities, oftentimes they are gambling as a solution. They don't see it as a problem. And so when we are providing services described as gambling disorders treatment, it's no surprise that we don't reach a lot of people because they don't even connect with the concept of gambling disorder, which is a very clinical term, and they don't really connect with the terminology either problem gambling. They see it as solution gambling. And so what I want to do is to offer up a call of action, if you will, so that we can understand the cultural nuances. I'm going to share my wisdom from my career specializing in how do we help the 95% who may never, ever seek treatment or who may not get to treatment very quickly. And for many good reasons, because many times they have not seen these services as inclusive. They don't see their values, their beliefs, their lived experiences reflected in many of the traditional mental health services, including gambling disorders treatment. And we have to think outside the box. We have to also engage community members so that they know that they're not having to give up what is natural for them when they decide to heal. What are people healing from? A lot. And a lot of what people are healing from, particularly in cultural communities, are racial stress, racial trauma, experiences of marginalization and oppression, where they are often not seen as human beings, or they don't have encounters as human beings with the same rights and privileges of being respected, of being loved, as being valued, as being seen to be brilliant, bright, capable, competent. And so they have these encounters in the world where they're not empowered. They're actually made smaller. And so these are some of the realities that many people are escaping when they go to the casino, when they buy lottery tickets, when they are engaging in sports betting and other types of gaming and gambling. It offers them a way to disassociate from realities in life that are very difficult, that are very painful. For example, men of color are often feared in the world. And so they're not often given the opportunities to express fully how they're struggling, how they feel. Because many people, when men of color express their anger, they may have pent-up rage, and for very good reasons. People get really afraid of that. And this can start when they are small children, when they're small boys, little boys. And so they have lived through life not having opportunities to give voice to their lived experiences. And they don't really trust that even coming to therapy, particularly if therapy is not reflective of people of their communities or of their culture, and they don't trust these encounters even in professional settings or even in medical settings or mental health settings, because we have often also had medical trauma as well as racial trauma. So they don't really trust even the professional services that you may really be working hard to provide. And so a big part of this is learning about these realities that also interface with risky gambling, substance use, and mental distress, so that you can expand your personal and interpersonal sort of way of being, so that you can feel comfortable with these community members. You can start looking for opportunities to connect with these community members. It means that we've got to leave the comforts of our offices to establish relationships with community stakeholders, so that they can know that these are services that are available and that we are really committed to supporting these community members in their holistic healing. So how might these programs miss the mark? And then how might these programs step out of their traditional settings to really reach people who are struggling with risky gambling, gambling addiction, and other co-occurring substance use issues, as well as mental health distress? So I'll start with how they missed the mark. How they missed the mark is oftentimes just a lack of understanding about health inequities and social injustice. We know, and these are topics that are talked about all the time, and after some of the deaths that have happened across the country to Black and brown people and people of color, that it really boiled over. And so a lot of times practitioners may miss the mark because it may mean that I've got to take a look at myself and come in touch with some areas that are very uncomfortable, such as white supremacy and the impacts of white supremacy and white domination in terms of power and control in the world. As one person stated, to accept that I have to hear this person of color share their experiences around racism means that I have to really accept the reality that I have participated, even not being intentional, of bringing harm to someone. And so these are areas that are very discomfortable or uncomfortable for many people in general, and that includes practitioners. And so a lot of times what we do is then we will hide from it. But instead, what we're saying is we need to provide opportunities of dialogue so that people can actually talk about it, and we can compassionately provide support even to practitioners to get in touch with those parts of ourselves that may be difficult for us to have to face. I think an example of what we can do outside the box is to move outside the comfort of our agencies, of our private practices, and actually do what is described by Toni Morrison, who is an amazing Black writer. And she says that when I go to visit a place like the Caribbean, I don't want to be in the hotel or the motel. I don't want to just stay in the comfort of the motel or hotel. I want to go to where the people are. I want to go to the villages. I want to go to the streets. I want to see where the people live. That's how I get to really learn about the people, about the culture. And so what I'm going to be putting as a charge, as a call to action to all of us at the conference, is to push us out into the community and to come up with some innovative designs, such as, for example, I'm a clinical consultant for one church, and I do grief support for this church. And so I have every 3 months a program that goes on in that setting. I'm not expecting people to come to me for grief counseling or for gambling disorder treatment, but I'm actually going to the community and I'm offering services in their space. And while I'm there talking about grief and trauma, I'm also talking to them about how people escape emotional distress, like trauma, like grief and loss, and how they self-medicate through gambling, through drug use, through opiates, through substance use, through overworking themselves, working themselves to death. When I do that, that's when I'm able to have conversations and have people get connected to treatment, get connected to therapy. And that's a more effective model. Let this be a year of real change. Let's move from doing business as usual, doing gambling disorders treatment as usual, what we've been doing, and let this be a year and upcoming years of really rethinking